you not, Judy?
Hello,
I
friends. Loud.
There it is, the loud voice from above. Okay, everybody, welcome to the, what month is it? February 2025 Ballpark Community Council meeting. There are 6 of us here in our anchor location tonight, currently at Salt Lake Community College on the 3rd floor. We're always grateful to the Salt Lake Community College for supplying us with this room, which is mic'd up, has some projection in it. It's very sophisticated. Thank you. Okay, getting started. We have a guest here from NeighborWorks.
Yes.
Who has a positive announcement.
Yes.
Let's hear it.
So we received the email today. We got funding from the city for programs called Funding Our Future, which is for down payment assistance. So it'll take a few months to negotiate that contract, but we will have money here in Salt Lake City for some down payment assistance, probably sometime in the spring, just to wait for the city to work out the contract. So we just got that email today. So
Yay, that
sounds
great.
very exciting.
Congratulations.
yeah, we're very so
Tell us some about what NeighborWorks spends their funding on.
So it depends on what it is. We do a variety of things. My name is Tony Simone. I'm the Director of Homeownership Services. So I manage our down payment assistance program in Salt Lake City, Taylorsville, Murray, Midvale, places like that. Also, we have our home improvement program. So we get grants in Salt Lake City, same thing, Murray, Midvale, and we help homeowners in, let's say here in Salt Lake City with home improvement grants. Each year we apply through the city. These are federal dollars. They're called CDBG dollars, which you may or may not be familiar with.
I have heard of such a thing.
Yeah, it's community development
welcome.
grants. Money is what it's called. Yeah, and so we get pretty decent amount every year, and we have a whole team that helps homeowners at 80% of the area median income or below. Not always on the west side, but typically it's the west side, but not.
Lots of our neighborhood qualifies.
Yeah.
Yes. So that's very exciting.
And then part of my team is financial coaches. So we have 3 financial coaches who do financial education, budgeting with in the men's and the women's jails, Housing Connect, First Step House. We go out in the community as well. And then we have a lot of online financial education stuff as well. Our Youth Works program, I don't know if anyone is familiar with our Youth Works program, but each semester we have a cohort of teenagers 14 to 18 who come in, and it's an internship for them and they get paid. We teach them just a lot of different skills, how to write a resume. We do mock interviews, and they go out into the community depending on the time of the year, and they do a lot of work. They'll help build fences, go to the different gardens or community gardens and parks, and do a variety of different things. And we just help them there. We do budgeting with them. Now they're getting paid. Like, what do they do with their money? Save it, spend it, a variety of things like that. And then
Did they ever pair up with Christina, help me with this, the Salt Lake City Core, the folks who also do a lot of volunteer work and cleaning up parks and stuff like that?
I know for sure, like we've worked with your Youth Works dozens and probably hundreds of times, right? So I think they pair up with almost everyone. I'm not certain of any specific examples with the Salt Lake City Core, but
yeah, that would be Whitney. I don't know exactly who they pair up with and what they do. I know in the afternoons that office changes, the energy changes, because you have 15 teenagers and there's no other teenagers in the office then. It's like you can always tell they bring a lot of energy. So it's really great. Then our community outreach team, Mateus runs that. We do a lot of things out in the community. I-15, that was a big issue for us. And the expansion they wanted would have taken our office and a lot of the homes that we built there right along the freeway, probably 20 homes. So 20 families would have been impacted. People, really don't have another place to go, even though the city was going to offer, or UDOT would offer to buy the home. Like, where are they going to go?
I think a lot of us are in the position that if we got fair market value for our homes.
Yeah.
And so where exactly do you operate out of?
So we are in Salt Lake City, so we're on the west side, Guadalupe Park, Rose Park area. And our main focus is Salt Lake City, but we do expand with our down payment assistance and home improvement grants. We work with other cities as well to help them manage those funds, so. It's usually better for us to do it than for them, than the city. We've been doing this a long time and have, great relationships with people in the community, so.
I'm just throwing this out there, but it's my understanding on 1300 South, there is an apartment building that does have some housing for young people who have aged out of the foster care system. So I'm going, that might be a good connection for them as far as some of the things that you're teaching young people. Like you said, resume, that kind of stuff. I don't know if that's, like something that.
Well, the youth works is not that is specifically no one over 18, so it's for high school kids. And the funding is required, so. But we do the other financial education, it's all free, so they could do other financial education, the budgeting.
Right.
That, and possibly go to where they're at. I mean, we go out a lot, so like I said,
I'm just
it's
throwing
great.
that out there. Maybe there's a connection there or something.
Sure.
Can I say something, but also just thank you so much. So again, I'm not from Ballpark here, but this year, Maria, NeighborWorks hosted the input sessions for the consolidated housing plan, which I attended. And I would recommend to Ballpark Community Council that, next time you get those, that invite, take advantage, send someone, because you learn so much from attending this couple of sessions. And then you get to put in feedback, but really it's the learning that goes into participating. So it was an incredible experience. So thank you.
Before we move on, just one more check-in, and sorry if I missed this, I'm trying to look at online stuff too. There are several other people online, about 25. So, ballpark date about when we could imagine some of those home repair grants becoming available?
Well, the new money is for down payment assistance.
Great.
It takes a while for the city to prepare the contract, so it's all up to them.
Okay.
We'll have somebody come, we're here usually every month, so when that contract gets signed, we will have someone here to let people know that it's only gonna be probably 4 or 5 people. I mean, we don't get a lot. So, but it'll be 4 to 5.
Okay.
And so we'll have somebody here to all the different community councils to let everybody know that funding is available. So.
Tremendous. Thank you. All right, we've had a whole bunch more people join the meeting in the past few minutes. We're now 11 strong in this room, I think, if I'm counting correctly, and I might not be. Folks in the back of the room, all the sound's going to be picked up by that mic there. So 12 strong in this room. So if you're at all interested in speaking and being audible to the 21 folks online, I encourage us to kind of scoot up and get comfy together. I'm happy to scoot up and give more room, but there's some nice empty chairs. Kevin, you're a quiet talker. Would you care to scoot up closer to the microphone? Because I'm sure you're going to have some good questions to me.
I can project if needed. Am I hearable online? It's a pretty good microphone, so.
It's a pretty good microphone, but I listen to a lot of our recordings and, All right, we got a yes. Thank you for projecting in advance.
If necessary, I'll move forward.
Thank you kindly. All right, let's see. Oh no, John Margette said we can hear you too. Doomed. All right.
John's got the back.
I know, John does have your back. John, our board member in cyberspace, it's a delight to see you online. All right, let's run through just a few community announcements and then we'll get to our speakers. Let's see. Is it gonna let me show Microsoft PowerPoint unknown? That's exciting. Let's try that. Oh, how fun. I need to go into my settings to allow Zoom to share my screen. Cool. Let's try that. I'm not gonna quit and reopen Zoom. That's not cool. You use Zoom all day, every day, and suddenly you can't share. How terrible is that? Aw, there it is. How fun. Okay, we'll go with that. Okay, today we're going to hear about food and homeless resources and also deeply supportive housing resources. I do want to highlight this for folks. Realize it's not the best view. Central City is hosting this resource that we're excited about, a community and renter resource fair. We'll bump this on our social media too. But Ballpark is about 85% renter. So we want to make sure that this is something people are aware of. This is happening next week, Thursday at 6:30 p.m.
East Central.
Oh, excuse me, East Central is hosting this at the McGillis School. But there's a lot of resources that are going to be available here. Housing Stability is working with them. Are you working with them?
I don't know.
Okay,
I am not.
all right. But it looks cool, and they're going to highlight the tenant resource center that was that the city has made available. Lots of resources here, and that's exciting, I think. More stuff. It's the legislative session. Yeah. I mean, it's great. Just highlighting two bills that could affect our neighborhood a great deal. Senator Jim Plum is running a bill on property loss amendments. This is somewhat similar to the bill that Representative Joel Briscoe ran last year. And I know John Margetts and I went up to the legislature and spoke in favor of that bill. That bill got out of committee, but did not pass on the House floor. So we'll see if this bill gets any further. Similarly, another bill that did.
Amy, can I just ask a quick question on that bill? Do you
I'd
know
love to.
where that is in process right now?
I do, John. That's so nice of you to ask. It is going to be heard in committee, I believe, next week. It is going to be heard at the Senate Economic Development and Workforce Services Committee. And I can put the link for that in the chat.
Right.
But-
Do you anticipate any need? Should I make my schedule available to go up there again, or do you even know? You might not
What
even
a
know.
wonderful question you're asking, John. I would love to hang out with you at the legislature at this committee meeting. That would be fantastic. And here is more about the bill. Uh-oh. Here we go. Anybody who wants to come hang out at this committee meeting is more than welcome. And you do not have to be in person. I commented earlier this week at a hearing completely online, and it worked fine, and people in the room heard me and people online heard me. So I totally recommend participating in this way. It's fantastic. The second bill that we're following is Representative Tyler Clancy has a bill with many different parts of substance use treatment. But one of the parts that I imagine is going to impact our neighborhood is there is a particular part about nuisance properties. And if a property owner is aware that there is illegal activity happening on their property, this raises the penalty after folks have been notified several times. And I think that could be a really useful tool for either our community or other communities in Salt Lake City that are affected by nuisance properties. I know that's actually what inspired me to get involved in community advocacy to begin with, was a property across the street from my house that was creating real problems for our little block. And I think a lot of you have experience and know that like one bad property can bring down a block in a big way. So this could be exciting, but again, it still has to pass the House. So we'll follow its progress and see what's what. And I can put that information into the chat as well. Okay. More good stuff. Let's start hearing from some of our speakers who are here and online tonight. Detective Fallows, would you like to go first? You have a lot to talk about.
Yep, I do. Can everybody hear me okay?
Sure. Let me stop
Awesome.
sharing my screen so we can take you on that.
Yeah, and then I can see myself.
So fun, right? Don't you love it?
Perfect. All righty. I think pretty much everybody knows me, but if you don't, I'm Detective Sam Fallows. I'm the community liaison detective for the ballpark area and many other areas. And so tonight, what I want to do is just give a few updates on some big happenings that have occurred recently in ballpark. And then I'll take any questions about that or about anything else. And then we'll kind of go over a few important topic items. How about that? So to begin with updates. So I know that pretty much everybody in Ballpark and in Salt Lake City saw the press release for the MyPods at 1480 South State Street. So I mean, I think most everybody knows the update on that, but essentially, there was some illegal, some criminal things happening out of that place. It came to my attention pretty early on when they first got their business license. We were able to, I was able to work with our special investigations unit. They did a phenomenal investigation, and they were able to do some really, really good work and make an arrest and essentially shut that place down. And then I followed up with the building owner to ensure that they don't continue their operations there. And then I've been following up with our business licensing as well to make sure that we can kind of square away from that side as well. So that's kind of one of the unique things that I do as a community liaison, as an example. When we have these types of issues in neighborhoods, the tips were really helpful from our community. I just wanted to say thank you all to you all. I know that you guys are there. You see everything that's going on all the time. We're not always there, obviously, and we don't know all the time what's going on. So the tips that we receive are really important. And this is a really good example of why tips are important, because a lot of what we started with to make the investigations, to get the ball rolling, was tips and stuff that came into me and to online and things like that. So tips are really important for this exact reason. And this is a really good example of that. Yeah, MyPods, last that I drove by there, it looks like it's pretty much like shut down and locked up, and the doors are got this big metal grate thing across them, and I'm not seeing any business going on there. So that's a win for the neighborhood. As you all know, it was causing a lot of issues, right? It wasn't just the building and the business itself, and we know this, right? When these types of businesses come in, it spreads to the surrounding businesses, to the surrounding neighborhoods. We continue to have issues with, prostitution, with assaults, stabbings, things like that. So we obviously don't want to see those things. We want to prevent the violent crime as much as we can, and also all the smaller crimes that come with those types of things, the thefts, the drug use, and things like that. So when we can kind of take one big issue and shut it down, that generally will help. So I'm hoping that by next month we see a big decrease, which we should, from what I'm seeing, just the trending right now. We should see a big decrease in that area right there on State Street of some of the issues we've been having. So does anybody have any questions about the MyPods or anything with that update? Yes.
Christina Robb in the room sure does.
Yes.
Hey, Detective Fellows, long time no talk.
Mm.
That's sarcasm for everybody. That's 100% Sarcasm.
I just have a question, actually probably two questions on this. So, I found out just recently that this operation started in the North Temple area. Got some resistance there, moved to Ballpark. So my first question is are we pretty?
Kelly Lake, turn down your volume.
I thought it was off, sorry, guys.
Somebody.
Misbehaving, Bob.
Okay. Trying to stop the circle of sound, you guys, you know it.
Are we pretty certain that like we've choked that off in North Temple? And then my second question is now that we've shut it down here in Ballpark, do we anticipate it popping up in some other neighborhood across Salt Lake City?
So definitely, that's a great question. And I was not aware that it started on North Temple. Are you saying with the same business owner? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, and the same gambling, I don't know if we call it a ring or whatever, but organization is kind of the word I've been using, but yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah, I honestly wasn't aware that it started on North Temple, but I think what we try to do, especially with like SIU, is we'll keep SIU is our special investigations unit. So if things are popping up, we will generally. So again, this came to my attention because they applied for a business license that was very strange, we'll just say. So I immediately knew like, hey, this is probably going to be a problem. So I brought it up to our special investigations sergeant like pretty much immediately. So almost from the second they opened their doors to when this happened, we were aware of the situation and working on it actively. And that's also just to give you guys an idea in the community of like how difficult it is to put together a good investigation and actually shut something down. So you see how long that lasted, right? And that's from the time they got the business license and opened to now. So it's not an easy thing to just shut these things down, right? It takes a lot of work, a lot of resources, a lot of manpower, and it takes a lot of good police work, And so again, just a huge shout out to our SIU because they do a phenomenal job. They're not a ginormous unit. They probably need like, 3 or 4 squads, and they've got one squad of, maybe 7 dudes, eight people, and they're just a phenomenal squad what they do for the city. So just want to highlight their really, really hard work. And in addition to the bike units and everyone else too, that helped a lot. It took so many resources to come together to make this work, honestly. But to answer your question, so I try to monitor it with things like that, and this comes from many different angles. Like civil enforcement can reach out to us when they see these types of things. Like, hey, I just saw this business license. Business licensing will reach out to us with because Salt Lake City is very particular where it has to be very fair with the business licensing, and so they can't just deny a business license just based on it's got to be factual, right? As with everything, and so. But they'll reach out to us as well. So it will hopefully be on our radar if something does pop up in the future, but I don't anticipate that. But again, it's not impossible, but we know who he is at this point. We've known who he is for a while. And again, that's why we were able to get on this so quick before it became a really, really big issue that lasted for years and years on end before we could finally get it shut down. Right. So yeah, we're aware of who he is, the business owner and the issues we've had with him in the past. Hopefully, yeah, it will not be a major issue in the future.
Awesome job. Thank you so much. I think, again, just keeping after these things that move around, but thank you so much and pass on our love to that unit if you would. Thank you.
Absolutely. Any other questions on the MyPods before we move on?
Detective Fellows, I think your points about business licensing kind of relate to the links that we talked about, and I just threw them in the chat. You talked about how online tips can be incredibly helpful, and also submitting complaints to the Department of, I forget what the piece.
Professional licensing.
Say it again.
Education and professional license.
Yes.
Oh, all right. So these are useful tools that you wanted to highlight.
Yes. Yeah, that's a good segue into the next thing that I want to talk about. So another hot button issue in Ballpark, and not just Ballpark, there's a lot of places, but because Ballpark's my community, another hot button issue is massage parlors, right? We all know that there's been issues with some massage parlors. And so I wanted to, and me and Amy kind of brainstormed about this as well. I want to find creative ways to help get tips to our special investigations unit, and B, work on shutting places down that are seedy businesses, right? That are not legitimate. Like if you're a legitimate massage parlor, then there's absolutely nothing wrong with that, of course. But if there's a massage parlor and they're engaging in prostitution or things like that, we want to shut them down, obviously, and deal with those issues. So me and Amy brainstormed a little bit, and some things that we came up with that I think will be helpful for the police department from the community specifically. So when you call patrol on those types of things and you're trying to report like, hey, I see prostitution issues, there's nothing wrong with that. It's just sometimes those things can get buried in a general offense report, or sometimes they can get buried in a call for service, and it doesn't always necessarily make it to where it needs to be. And that's just due to the nature of the beast of how big Salt Lake City is and how many calls for service we get all the time and all these different things, right? So something that we brainstormed was our online tip portal. And the link is in the chat for those that are online. But for those in the room, if you just go to our website, slcpd.com, there under the resources, there's at the bottom it says submit a tip. There is a great resource there where you can submit videos, photos, you can write a little narrative, and you can also kind of explain like what you're seeing. And those tips go directly to the unit that it's involving. So for instance, if it's a drug tip, it will go to also that's our special investigations unit. If it's, burglary or something like that, or burglary tip, like, hey, I've seen people casing this neighborhood multiple times, the same exact people, this is what they look like, whatever it may be, that would go to our burglary division. So like there's our property crimes division. So these tips, they come in and they get distributed to where they need to be. And everybody knows I'm very big on preaching that the squeaky wheel gets the grease, right? And so when you're seeing an issue, what that means is when you're seeing an issue, if you can take a second and just submit an online tip through the portal, I personally think that might be a little more effective than calling patrol, unless of course there's an immediate police issue, right? Like someone's getting assaulted, or you see something currently actively happening, things like that, maybe a sex act is actually in the act of happening, something like that in a car or something, then yes, of course, call patrol or call 911. But if it's just like I'm seeing cars coming and going all the time at 3 o'clock in the morning, there's a line of men outside this massage parlor, and usually people don't go get massages at 2 in the morning, or 1 in the morning. It's not very common. Things like that. Submit those tips because that will be helpful. And then also the DOPL, which stands for the Division of Professional Licensing. In Utah, you have to have a license to be a massage therapist, to be a massage to give people massages. And so, not that I want you to go in there and try and get a massage from any of these places. So I'm just to make it clear, I'm not asking you to do that. But if you believe that, maybe they're not necessarily a massage therapist because, again, what you're seeing leads you to believe that maybe it's prostitution, then make a DOPL complaint. Because again, that's another angle to combat the issue where DOPL, which is a state agency, will get involved and investigate any complaints they get. And so if they get several complaints about a specific business that you all suspect, and again, we suspect based off evidence, right? We don't suspect based off what we think or what we feel. It's what we're seeing, right? We all know what it looks like, more or less. And so again, if you're seeing people coming and going every 5 or 10 minutes, multiple, usually men, right, coming and going every 5 minutes. You see women walking around in robes with hardly anything on underneath, things like that. These are all things you're looking for that are indications of prostitution. So again, a DOPL complaint, they're probably not valid massage therapists, most likely, So again, it's just another resource to try and help combat the issue. And then our job on the police department side of it would be to just put together an investigation, kind of like we did with my pods and that kind of thing, and work on it that way. And then as your community liaison, I want to also combat it with working directly with a building owner who owns the building itself, and see if I can work with them to cooperate with, if I can provide them evidence of, hey, this is what my community is seeing. I don't think that this is a legitimate business. Can you look into it further as the building owner, and maybe, if it's deemed necessary, maybe do an eviction, So we've had success with that in Ballpark with quite a few different things as well. So, so that's my plan to kind of start combating the issues we're seeing with some of the massage parlors on Main Street and on State Street. Does anybody have any questions that I can clarify on that, or questions about that specifically?
Yeah, I have a question. So I used to live in San Francisco, and they had the same issue, but they took it from away from the police and really and moved it to the health department because it's a crime, but it's really a health issue as well.
Sure.
And so you're talking about innovative things. Have you thought of that of having the health department manage these massage parlors instead of the police?
Yeah, so we do definitely get them involved as well, especially like if I'm trying to do like we can get the fire department involved to do inspections, we can get the health department involved to do their inspections as well. And that's a great point to bring up. I appreciate that. But yeah, we do absolutely get them involved to deal with it from their side as well. Because the investigations are very hard to put together, truthfully, when it comes um, to the prostitution with the massage parlors and things like that. They're not an easy investigation to put together. And so that's one of the reasons why I'm trying to find all the different avenues we can to try and, combat this. So yeah, very good point. And we do absolutely get the health department involved.
Yeah, that's not what San Francisco did. They moved it away from a police issue completely, and the health department managed them because you're not going to stop it. And San Francisco is like, let's clean it up in a health issue, and if people are going to go there, then they want it to be as clean as they can. And they took it away from the police at all. The police do not go to massage parlors at all anymore.
Yeah, I'll be 100% honest with you. I don't think that's going to happen here, but
Well, I know. You're talking about innovative ways. There's,
no, so yeah, we'll involve them for sure. Like exactly what you're saying. It just won't be only with them. It'll just be multiple different facets at the same time, essentially. So yeah, it's what you're saying for sure. They'll do their side of it when we get them involved. Um, just the police will still be involved with it, most likely.
So if I just understood you correctly, is more of like oh my gosh, my brain is like, what are the needle clinics? More of a harm reduction thing. Is that what you're talking about?
well, I never been there. I wasn't involved. My friend ran the health department in San Francisco. So he was instrumental in basically, I don't want to say it was legal, but they took it away from the police. The police were not raiding. They had the health department go in and manage them and just make sure that things were clean, and they had condoms and they had all these sort of things because it's going to move from one place to another and you're not going to stop it. And for San Francisco, it's like, we want to keep it as clean as we can. And that moves resources from the police to other areas. So not saying Utah is completely different. Salt Lake City is a different place, but that's kind of what their take was on it. So
I think a lot of our concerns aren't just related to health, but they're also related to human trafficking. In which case we would think it's still appropriate to have law enforcement involved. Yes, please.
I know, talking about San Francisco and Oakland, I know that there was a program in Oakland where there was a lot of prostitution happening. And the city of Oakland, or Alameda County actually began sending notices to people. I'm not saying we should do this, but I was like, this is a powerful deterrent. Notices to the DMV address on file say that this person was in an area known for like human trafficking or sex trafficking, such that it like decreased a little bit of the demand or decreased someone's willingness to seek out services that might be illegal or might be involved in prostitution. I'm not saying that that's what we should do, but just thinking creatively about reducing demand.
Yeah, that's hard because like so many of those are just right next door to completely legitimate businesses, right? Like
exactly.
Massage parlor on Main Street that was advertising the New Girl right next to one of the best yoga studios.
Exactly.
Still advertising.
No, not as of 5 p.m. today. I jog by on my own
Girl.
feet. Yeah. I mean, maybe they just took the sign in for the evening.
And I took
But
a
why would
picture
you
of
do
this
that? I'm just telling you, I went by at 5 p.m. today. I also took a picture of the grand opening of, you and I all know, In-N-Out Burger.
That is
But technically.
Just as long as they don't throw up a sign that says semi-new girl or something.
Gross.
Like, let's just beware of this.
yeah. So just to recap with everyone, yeah, I think that the best way to combat it is just multiple different facets, right? And thinking outside the box for sure. And so, and that's just how we're going to start, how I wanted to kind of start the conversation. Well, there's going to be more on this. the last ballpark meeting, the mayor talked about we're going to do like a community roundtable where we can bring in some federal partners and things like that. So, and we're working on that stuff. It's not, as you all know, like Salt Lake City is very busy with, the stuff from the state and all that stuff that we've been working on. So it's all in the works. It's just trying to do the best we can to get it done as quick as we can. But in the meantime, I was trying to think of like creative ways that we could kind of help start getting the ball rolling on things and getting tips in and things like that. So, let's see.
Alice, one more thing that we talked about. Do you have any updates on that really severe hit and run motorcycle crash that happened on Saturday, January 18th?
Yep, that was the last thing I was going to talk about. I don't have a lot to talk about, unfortunately. So, yeah. So just bear with me, be patient. What's happening right now is it is an ongoing investigation. We are making significant progress with it. And I've talked to our PR director, and he said that we will release a community statement as soon as we possibly can. But right now, the only information that they want to say right now about it, just because it's an ongoing investigation and we're working really hard to resolve it, is it's an ongoing investigation. We are making significant progress. We are. That's 100% accurate. But there will be a community update for sure. Because that he told me that there's been a lot of interest in it as well from Ballpark and from the surrounding community, and rightfully so. So there will be an update, 100% for sure. When they can give one. So that's unfortunately all I can say about that specific case right now.
I'm sure we appreciate that it's being worked on. Because I mean, some of us were at that scene right after it happened. It looked terrible. I'm glad everyone survived.
Yeah. Let me look in the chat real quick. There's a couple different things in there. Make sure I don't miss anything. Oh. Dennis, I'm not sure how many massage parlors we have, but I am positive on State Street and Main Street, there's probably at least 5, maybe more in that like 2 blocks area. Maybe 10, 15. I don't know. I'm not 100% sure. I know there's quite a few in Ballpark. Just in Ballpark, there's quite a few. I'm not even sure how much in all of Salt Lake City.
I could find out from business licensing.
Hi,
Yeah,
Josh.
that'd be awesome.
Maybe Detective Fellows.
And what sort of percentage of those are legitimate?
I mean, I'm sure that there's several massage parlors that are very legitimate in Salt Lake City. I don't want to paint a broad brush here and say that, every massage parlor is running prostitution, because I don't think by any means that's true. But there are certain ones for sure. And I don't want to really go into details on like in a public forum about it. At least not if someone over my head wants to, that's great, but I don't want to ruin any investigations or anything like that. So there are definitely massage parlors that are not legitimate, that are running, having issues with prostitution and things like that, without a question. I don't like how many of those are legitimate or not legitimate. I honestly don't know the number to that. But there are both legitimate and illegitimate massage parlors in Salt Lake City, 100%. For sure. I just don't know the number. So all right. Is there any other questions that I can answer? That's the biggest thing I want to go over. So if y'all could do that big favor for me in the community, work on the tips and the links with those tips with Doppel and with the online portal, that would be big. And then you can always pass anything on to me as well, and I can kind of send it out to where it needs to go as well. So there's a lot of different avenues to get tips into the police department. And I'm, of course, any tips, but I'm speaking specifically to the massage parlors, because that's what we want to focus on right now.
Thank you, Detective Bell.
Can I add something real quick? Thanks.
I sure wish you would, Josh, from the mayor's office.
Yes. Hi, everyone. Just want to add real quick, as the Detective Fellows mentioned, the mayor at the last meeting heard a lot from the community about this issue. So we're paying special attention to it as well, working with Detective Fellows and with health department and with other partners to find solutions for this as well. So we're staying in the loop on it. And as Detective Fellows mentioned, planning more opportunities for the community to be engaged in talking about this, either perhaps through some sort of community roundtable that we could be planning here soon. As we give some time for the community to use these other resources and avenues for reporting issues. But yeah, please let us know as well in the mayor's office if you have any feedback.
Looking forward to that roundtable, Josh. All right, sounds like we covered public safety pretty thoroughly, except for Kevin, who has a question. Or was
Oh, yeah.
Not Dennis, I would just say there are multiple organizations, service agencies, Asian Association of Utah, Soap to Hope, I believe, is running by January. You can call the police and ask for assistance. There's UTIP, the Utah Trafficking Persons Tip Line. You can call Project Polaris, I believe they're called. A simple Google search, there are 1,000 places to reach out for assistance, or call me. I'll figure out how to get you someone.
Kevin, I think we're gonna ask you to make a nice short list of those resources so we can keep on posting them. Does that sound okay with you?
2 easy. I have one for Detective Fellows, however, 2 actually, but they'll be quick.
Can I just ask you a question real quick though, before you, okay, I'm sorry to cut in, but I spend a substantial amount of time driving the freeway. And in all the restrooms along the freeway, they have the signs for the UTIP. They'll fly those posters. Is there any way that you can get those resources into the restrooms around Ballpark and also on North Temple?
That's a good idea.
And just like, I mean, they put them in all the women's restrooms all along the highway. So potentially.
Text that to me or email that to me. I know
Will do, Kevin.
they have UTIP and
I got you, man. Yeah.
I am loving this positive body
So
language.
now you go. So sorry, didn't mean to.
I'm happy to call out Salt Lake PD when I feel that they should invest more in an area. And so I'm also happy to acknowledge that recently, and when I said that it hadn't been improved, I mean it and I still stand by it. But recently I've seen a great improvement in Jefferson Park. I want to give you guys credit for that. I see families there again. I see people playing in the evening and early mornings, and I don't see people huddled up as often in states of inebriation and concern. So, well done there. I'm curious, surprised we didn't come up. What do we anticipate any? There are major national movements with ICE affecting many cities. How will that affect our city?
Yeah, that's a really good question, actually. I'm surprised it took this long to come up. The chief has made it pretty clear that we are not, the Salt Lake City Police Department is not in any way, shape, or form going to do any kind of immigration checks or anything even remotely related to that. Our purpose will be essentially we will support ICE in specific instances that they request us, and I don't even know that I'm 100% sure what those specific instances are, but I'm thinking it's like if we're dealing with a violent felon who has illegal immigration status and things like that, that's when ICE will get involved with the Salt Lake City Police Department. So we're looking at like violent felons, things like that. We're not doing any kind of immigration stop checks on people, things like that. We're not getting involved with ICE and those types of things. We're not going to go out and do their raids with them. As far as that's my understanding, that the Salt Lake City Police Department will support them when needed in like if they're, I'm not even sure exact the scenario. So I'm a little unprepared for the question, but I knew it was probably going to come up. But I just know that the chief had put out and said that we are not going to be actively doing any kind of immigration checks in the Salt Lake City Police Department. I don't know that we've done those in the past, if ever, but I was a police officer when it first kind of kicked off in like 2014, 2015, when they started gave the powers to the local police departments. And it's never been a thing that I've really ever seen participated in a ton by local police departments. So, I don't know if that answers your question exactly, but essentially the Salt Lake City Police Department essentially is staying out of it unless requested specifically by ICE to assist them in specific circumstances. On our end, it's more violent felons, things like that. Does that somewhat answer your question, hopefully?
That works.
Perfect. But yeah, and I do want to reiterate, we are not doing any kind of immigration status checks on anybody. Like we're not going to stop and talk to, someone who we believe is, it's just not even anything we're considering.
So I do have some collaboration questions or ideas I'd like to run by you later. Is it all right if I call you?
Say it again. Sorry.
I have some not with ICE, but just in general, local law enforcement collaboration ideas I'd like to run by you. Is it all right if I call you later?
Yeah, of course. Yep. Did you say call me or did you say
Call.
Yeah, of course.
These pieces of projection, Kevin, are falling flat.
Fair enough, fair enough.
All right. He'll call you maybe. Are we wrapped up with public safety now? Community safety? We ask the big questions and the little questions. Thank you, Detective Fallis, for your service. We appreciate you.
Absolutely. Of course.
Okey doke. Two more big questions to talk about tonight. Local food, homeless services. Are you guys super pressed for time? Michelle,
I'm sorry,
are you super pressed for time?
no,
Okay, let's find out about
the
something
only thing we haven't done.
pretty unusual. Let's see. Oh, there you are.
Bottom of the screen.
My screen and it's not. Quinn,
There we go. Hi, everybody. Can you hear me okay?
we can hear you great. What the heck's the food co-op? Give us your pitch. What's happening?
Well, just raise of hands of people in the room. How many people are even aware of the food co-op at this point? Handful of people?
More yeses than nos.
That's great.
2/3.
Well, for all the people who are screens off on the call, the Wasatch Food Cooperative is a food co-op that's going in right next to Liberty Park. Amy, will you let me share my screen here and I can just run through a quick little.
I made you co-host because I thought that would be like grant you that power, but apparently Zoom is getting even more finicky.
Here we go. All right. So for those of you who don't know, the Wasatch Cooperative Market has been around 10 years. It's rebranded recently as the Wasatch Food Co-op. It will be locally owned by the community right here in the heart of Salt Lake. There'll be a great outlet for healthy, affordable nutrition right next to Liberty Park. And I'll dive into how it'll be healthy and affordable as well. So for those of you who know that it exists, it has been around for over 10 years. We're getting a lot more traction now, which is exciting and fantastic. There's, I think, historically been between 6 to 8 people roughly on the board. There are over 12 people on the board now. Some of the new board members, include myself, but Missy Grice, who is the founder of Public Coffee, just joined the board. A bunch of young people, a couple of folks from the university. There's a great team that are on board trying to move this grocery store forward. So we have wonderful momentum. We're all super optimistic that we'll open around the fall, but it has been 10 years plus in the making, almost 15, and we're super thankful for all of the community members who have got it to this point. For Utah, it'll be a pretty landmark grocery store. There are over 300 cooperative grocery stores in the United States, but there's only one right now in the entire state of Utah. It's down in Moab. For those of you who have been down there, it's called the Moonflower Cooperative. It's a great little store. But for a state of a few million people, only having one is pretty significant. And across the West, there tends to be a pretty big, the Intermountain West, a pretty big gap in cooperative grocery stores. So why is this important? One, a cooperative grocery store allows the community to have a say in the products that are being sold in the community. At the grocery store, it gives a place for local producers to sell their products beyond a farmer's market. and this keeps more quality food in the community. I'm not sure how familiar everyone is with the nutrition impacts of transporting food, but uh, there are oftentimes, apples, produce, other fruits and veggies that are in the store that won't even have, like oranges, for example, won't even have vitamin C. They lose roughly 10 to 15% of their nutrients every day, micronutrients every day that they're on a truck getting shipped. So when we're bringing local food to local stores that's proximal to the point of purchase, they're more nutritious for the people in the community. That lowers healthcare costs. That keeps the community going in a really positive way. And then obviously, money is kept locally. Local dollars circulate more quickly. We're not spending money at McDonald's or a Kroger, more national retail stores that are exporting a lot of those dollars and not keeping them in the community. So grocery cooperatives are great. They're around for a reason, and we're really excited to bring the first one to Salt Lake. Part of the initial scoping of where to put the grocery store itself, looked at a few different factors, but we've settled on the milk block here on the northwest side, sorry, of Liberty Park, pretty close to the ballpark community. There was, as part of the study, it was understood that there weren't really too many grocery stores within this area. There's the Smith's to the east and the north, as well as the Whole Foods. But the closer that you move towards the ballpark community, there's fewer grocery stores within walking or biking distance. So this is an optimal location to put one in. There weren't as many options for affordable and healthy solutions. So Whole Foods, I call it whole paycheck. I do like to shop there sometimes, but it can be pretty expensive, and there's not great opportunities to. There really are no opportunities to use SNAP or double up bucks. For those of you who aren't familiar with either of those, SNAP is food stamps provided as part of the Farm Bill from the USDA and the federal administration, and then double up bucks is a program run alongside SNAP that allows for food bucks to go 2 times as far. So you get 2-for-1 spending in certain circumstances, namely farmers markets, local food stores, grocery cooperatives for staple foods, proteins, things like milk, eggs, cheese, dairy, meat, whole unprocessed grains, things like that. So we'll be the first store in the area to be able to offer that in an underserved community in that capacity. So we're really looking forward to that. And then obviously with a lack of cooperatives as well as seasonality in our farmers markets, this gives a great opportunity for local producers to sell their stuff year round. This is if I'm sure you all have driven past it recently, it's getting updated pretty constantly as we speak, but this is what the rendering of the milk block will look like. The 9 line will come right through here, so there'll be access, close access through tracks, through bike access, etc. And there will be a whole host of businesses that are going in around the cooperative around the same time they'll be opening, which is slated for summer fall of this year. This is another rendering of it. This will be the front of the store here. And this is what it looks like right now. So it's getting updated as we speak. We still need to get a lot done on the inside, but the outside is looking really good. The windows have just gone up. We're really excited, and the contractor that we're working with is fantastic. But we have a long way to go the rest of this year. So at this point, we've raised about $1.3 million through ownership in the cooperative, through grants, through donations, through preferred share sales. But we need about 2.4 million more to open the store on time, namely to cover the rest of the construction costs, to buy equipment, refrigeration, shelving, cover operating costs for the first 6 to 12 months, hire an interim GM to work on, hiring staff, training, and getting a long-term general manager set up to run a grocery store. There are very specific roles that we need to fill there that are tough to find and source. And then lastly, to actually, buy products and stock the shelves. So it's a big gap. We've applied for a federal Healthy Foods Initiative grant that would actually provide a bridge loan for the rest of that 2.4 million, as well as provide some grant funding to support the payback of that. With the federal funding freeze that happened in the past couple weeks, that is up in the air whether we would get that or not, and that was our best shot at getting open on time. So we will have to get creative if that doesn't go through. Fingers crossed that it will. There are a few large grant options that we are exploring through both local foundations and national federal foundations. So we're working with a grant writer to give us the best shot at securing those funds. But when it comes to grassroots participation in the grocery store, there's a few things that we can do and are asking of the community to support. One is ownership in the cooperative. This is just like buying into a business or a community. It's most like a bond for those of you who are familiar with that financial instrument. You buy shares in the business. We use that to finance the business. Once the business is profitable, based on your ownership in the business, it pays a dividend based on your ownership percentage. And then 10 years in, the money is returned to you at face value. So the minimum requirement to buy into the grocery store is 2 shares at $1,000 a share. And just to be clear, you don't need to be a member or an owner in the cooperative to shop there. It is open to the public. And then the second is preferred shares. This would be more like buying a dividend stock in a company. You get paid back first on the profits of the business. Your annual dividend is about 3.5%. This isn't paid back at 10 years. You're seeing it just more of as an annual cash flow tool. Obviously, it's you can't really compare it to a CD or anything like that. But it's a great vehicle to put some money into the community if you have the available funds to do so. And then we obviously take donations as people see fit. And if anybody is aware of grants that are coming on the table for community development that this might fit into nicely, it would be great to get in touch with you and learn more about that. So we have about 1,300 members at this point. We're super thankful for all of them. They've been an integral part of our progress so far, and we'd love your help to continue our mission of bringing quality, healthy, affordable food to the Salt Lake community. So I'll open it up to questions.
Happy birthday to Sunny, who was pictured in that slide. Christina Robb has a question.
I just missed it because I was talking to Kevin here. The miles, I saw something about miles to food from the food co-op. It said it was over a mile to groceries. Like, can you just give a little more information on that stat and sort of the food desert status that it seems like you're kind of referring to?
Yeah, let's see if I can pull that back up. So here's where the store is located on the northwest corner of Liberty Park. If you go east, there's a Smith's to the east. If you go north, there's a Whole Foods and a Smith's. A few blocks, I think it's 3 or 4 blocks north, and then 3 or 4 blocks east to the other Smith's. And then as you head west and south, it's a little bit further to more large scale retail grocery stores that would be a consistent shopping outlet. And so as part of the feasibility study for the grocery store, both the space that opened up for us to to lease and secure a long-term lease for a grocery store, as well as the relative food desert that the grocery store might, be built in, was what led to it being the spot to where it is today. Does that answer your question a little bit better?
Did you say it was more than a mile to the Smiths? Is that what you said?
I don't know if it's more than a mile, but that the average transit time to, or the average distance that people were traveling in the neighborhood was more than a mile to the nearest grocery store, I think was what the initial study identified.
Thank you.
I think some questions that folks might have is just how is, if we don't buy into ownership, because I think that there might not be many people for whom that's an option in the ballpark neighborhood. I don't know if you're familiar, but the area median income in our neighborhood is significantly lower than, for example, east of Liberty Park. What is the experience of your average grocery shopper that is not going to be a member? How would that be different than if I was just walking into Harmon's, for example?
Can you say that last bit again?
How would it be different walking into this grocery store versus, for example, walking into a Harmon's?
Gotcha. You are going to have more locally sourced food. We are going to be cost competitive with grocery stores in the area. So our goal was to come in at a competitive or lower cost than, say, the Smiths or the Harmons in the area. So the food that we're not sourcing locally, which will be roughly 20 to 25% of the inventory, will be provided to us through a group called the National Grocery Cooperative. They're a cooperative buying group of goods for all the other cooperatives in the country, and they drastically reduce the cost of produce and goods in the store, which enables us to be cost competitive. So, it might be the same and fluctuate from, 10 to 20% lower to 10 to 20% higher on some goods for the standard shopper. And then for those who do have or utilize SNAP or double up bucks, you'll be able to use those at the store as well. So, especially if you have double up bucks, you're able to access healthier, healthier food at an already affordable price, which is a pretty good option, we think. And based on the studies that we've done and the community feedback that we've gotten, the support has been pretty positive for that solution.
Thank you. Anybody else? Questions online? Raise your paw. I'm very sorry to hear about your federal grant troubles. I know that there are plenty of folks in this room who are very affected by that situation. I hope that it is temporary at best.
John, do you have a question? Thank you, Amy.
Yeah, just a quick question. I'm just wondering if maybe I missed it in your presentation, but can you post a website in the chat here that we could go to if we wanted to find out more information about it?
Absolutely. I will do that right now.
I have a question. Well, the grants you're looking at, were they through the USDA? Have you talked to USDA, or was it through a different federal program?
It is managed by or administrated by the USDA, but is run and operated through a group called the Reinvestment Fund. The grant itself it's titled HFFI Healthy Foods Funding Initiative. It's designed very much for projects like us. The loan portion is way more like a traditional loan. So that takes applications more on a rolling basis. We have an open conversation with the loan officer there, but those funds are still being administered through the USDA ultimately. And pretty much everything at the USDA, I work in agriculture, in my day-to-day job is on pause right now. Both the farm bill development, and the farm bill is, 80% of the farm bill goes to SNAP, and food stamps. So all of it's on pause right now. We're kind of holding our breath. Hopefully some progress is made in the next few weeks, but I can't speak much more on it than that just because I don't know.
I've heard a lot of rhetoric about being interested in healthy foods and that being an ultimate solution for the US population. So I really hope people put their money where their talk is for all of us.
I do too. That's what I work on every day. So I believe in the project. I think whether we're getting money from the government for development on this or not, that the team that we have is so motivated to get this open. And we have 12 kick butt members who are really passionate, who all just showed up to volunteer to make this a reality. And so I think we will get scrappy and get it open. But stay tuned. And if anybody does come across opportunities that make sense, please reach out to me, so that I can follow up.
All the best, Quinn. Good luck with this project. You picked a phenomenal location, I have to say.
Well, we hope to see you there.
I don't know, man. You're gonna have to fight for my love for the world's largest Costco.
That's fair. Fair enough. We will have a bulk section. I will say that. We do have a bulk section.
You'll see me there.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Quinn. All right. Final presentation, let's learn about plans to expand Palmer Court.
I do not trust my voice vocalization, so I'm gonna come step right on up here.
Thank you very much. What positive behavior? Heaven.
So thank you for the opportunity. I'm Sarah Strain with the Road Home, and I wanted to start kind of with just a couple of different pieces, some history, where we're at with this project and what things look like as we go forward. So first, I want to talk a little bit, like when we speak about Palmer and we're talking about this Palmer expansion, it actually is not an expansion of Palmer Court as it is right now. So I think that's one piece we really want to make clear. We've heard a lot of different things out there and really want to make sure that we're clear with the community about our goals to be a good neighbor, and our goals to provide really great services and safe services to the residents that we have there. So for those of you who don't know, Palmer Court was acquired in 2009 and was one of the first conversions from a hotel into a permanent supportive housing facility that happened in the country. Along with that, there is a 99-year deed restriction on the property that limits the use of that land to affordable housing. And so that is a component of the property when it was purchased and used in this way and for this purpose as we've looked at it. Over the past few years, we've been doing a lot of work, both with our residents, but also with Salt Lake City PD and Detective Fallows, to really talk about Palmer Court. What are the limitations of Palmer Court, the limitations of the building within Palmer Court? How do those limitations impact certain components around safety and security, not only within the facility, but also in our neighboring areas and in our surrounding community? And so from this, we began to do a very, very light touch engagement to talk with our residents, to talk with immediate stakeholders and neighbors around shifts that we felt like needed to come to the Palmer Court facility and working through that. So we are in the infancy of this program. It is a project that we do not yet have any pre-development funds for. We're hoping to receive our first grant for that here shortly, to be able to engage in a much wider and broader capacity with many stakeholders around what that should look like. But what we do recognize is that we need to be able to have a building that is functional, that supports the principles of a CEPTED analysis, that supports the principle of a community and the safety that's needed around the community. And we've done an immense amount of work with Detective Fallows and his team over the past few years, and have really come to recognize that that facility and the design of that facility is not conducive to what we need to put in place in order to engage in the way that we want to engage in. And that's really a key top priority for us. So we're looking at a couple of different pieces as we have come out of the pandemic and recognized the level of need and the service needs that we have in our residents. And part of this plan is really looking at bringing wraparound treatment-based services and access to treatment-based services on site. In our current facility, we don't have the capacity or the space to provide those different components or services. And so moving forward, this is an option where we really want to move forward in a different way than what we have currently on site. And part of that is a strong partnership with First Step House. We would love to have them on site. They're going to be partnering with us on this venture as we go through. And we really see the ability to come together in the neighborhood in a really great and strategic way as we look at the possibilities of this property. So it's about 6 acres. What we have and what we know is that the number of units that are on that property that are specifically set aside for homeless services or for individuals who are exiting out of homelessness, it will stay about the same, possibly even decrease. So the number of units that are geared specifically towards that population, we anticipate that number staying within that same ballpark, no pun intended, to have that.
All the time. It's awful. You just fall into the
You do. It just happens. It's right there. But we also plan to do that with significantly more services wrapped around those individuals, but also with a building that is designed and purpose-built to be able to support the safety and security components that we need, both within the 4 walls and also for our neighbors in that arena, and looking at that. The second piece is that we recognize that Ballpark is growing. It's a diverse community, and there's such a need for affordable housing when we look at the location of that property located on right around 9th South in between State Street and Main Street, and how there's a lot of exciting development that's happening in that area. We have the Green Loop that's coming in that will go down 9th South. We have the hospital that's being rebuilt over in the old Sears building, and really see that there is the possibility and the potential with working with experts in the affordable housing arena, such as Give and the developer Give Partners, who's done several great projects throughout the community, to build and bring to the Ballpark area mixed use affordable housing that is community-based use, and really being able to engage in a much longer term strategy that it allows that property to really contribute and give back and offer such amazing access for our individuals. Imagine being able to work at the hospital and walk to and from work and engage in that way. And we could contribute in a way that really supports expanding the housing stock, but expanding affordable housing stock. I think, Amy, you just barely mentioned kind of the area median income of the Ballpark area, and that speaks to that the housing that we need to have come to the community is not that top dollar housing within that, but it's housing that our everyday working individuals can access and work through that. And that is really a key piece that we are thinking about as well. But again, this is all at a visionary stage. We don't have any pre-development dollars, so we want to be really clear that while we're excited about the many different potentials, we're just starting this journey. There'll be an opportunity for engagement with key stakeholders, for everyone to offer input and feedback as we're working through things once we have architects that we're able to engage with and move forward in that way. So this is what we have to share with you today, which is our goal of being able to reimagine that property, both in a way that is purpose-built to support safety and security within the facility and within the community, but also be able to long-term and down the road engage and add additional affordable housing stock to the area and to the community.
You have your first question?
Yeah.
And have I misunderstood? You mentioned re-envisioning the property, which I comprehend. But you're going to reimagine your tenancy, because you're talking about a very different population currently housed there. So this is kind of housing for housing of last resort. Is that going to be gone, and that population no longer
So the criteria that is set around the homeless services set aside will still be something that we function within, but what will be different when we look at this new vision and being able to do that is one, be able to provide a facility that is purpose-built in that space to accommodate the needs that they may have, but also working and bringing partners such as First Step House on site. It will have 24/7 staffing. It will have immediate access to treatment services in those different pieces. We'll continue to work closely with law enforcement and ensure that they have a space that's in that facility and working through that. And that is really key and important because one of the things that we've really looked at as we've looked at the current Palmer Court space and how we can support the community and that population, we've made a significant investment in safety in that building already. Not only in our work with Detective Fallis and his team over the last few years, but in hiring private security that's there 24/7. All of those different pieces, and all of that will continue in this new facility. But we anticipate, because of the increased on-site supportive services, that will be a way for us to be able to respond quicker as problems arise, and also to be able to determine if someone who's maybe getting services or who's housed in that facility needs to be receiving those housing services through maybe the behavioral health system or something along those lines. We're hoping for that. We know that we will be able to have a much quicker response to individuals that maybe this isn't the housing option for them, but also to be able to provide more supportive and wraparound services for the individuals who are able to stay there and that's their home.
So my confusion came from that you're mentioning affordable housing,
Yeah.
working class individuals, which are not the people.
Yes.
You have people that belong in a place like Pamela's Place, for example,
Right.
which has done very well with the model that you're kind of expressing.
Yeah.
And hopefully we'll be a partner in your design
Yeah.
as you figure out how do they achieve this, et cetera.
Absolutely.
Or I can't remember the name of the other place, one downtown, city center, city, whatever.
There's the
It's like
Sunset,
just
Sunrise,
south of 400
Sunrise
south.
Metro.
No, it's just south of 400 south. and
Oh,
it's
that's
like
what I was thinking
Denver
of.
Street or something. or
Yeah.
Colorado. Denver
Yeah.
Street.
So
What's the name of it?
Denver Street.
Denver Street,
And what's the name of it?
Denver Street.
Denver Street.
Denver Street is the name of the property as well. Are
We
you,
weren't
are
very
you?
original when we named it. It is named Denver Street because it's on Denver Street.
Yeah.
Well, there's another name for it. All right.
Okay.
So let me clarify to your point. Yeah, no, absolutely. So we actually view this as being multi-phased. So phase one of the property will be where we are looking at doing exactly what you just discussed with the same number of homeless set aside units or potentially less in phase one. Phase two, because that property is so large, would be further down the line, several years down the line, because we'd have to get through phase one first. But that would be mixed income, affordable housing that would be done in partnership with a developer who specializes in that affordable housing component that would be open to the community. So you'd have two separate properties, one that would interact off of the State Street side and one that would interact off of the Main Street side. So there would be no connection between the two properties. They would function in two different capacities.
But you already have that land, the total?
We do. We have the entire piece of land.
Sorry.
We're really excited about it.
I did find myself since I realize you need the money first, right?
Yeah.
But just thinking, is it possible that maybe you're attempting to integrate too much into the property? Well, we like the idea of centralization and all that. You could have more units, for example, if you don't have First Step House or you don't have some medical clinic like Pamela's Place has a Sacred Circle downstairs. And do you truly, I don't know, there's something about owning the service. I get that. But do you truly need that when you're, as you mentioned, 2 or 3 blocks away from a brand new state-of-the-art medical center, and you're literally, that property is maybe 2 blocks off the top of my head away from Valley Behavioral Health, which is a major player in our valley. If you're build relationships there, you could farm that out to within 2 blocks of where you're at, while also being able to service more people.
Absolutely. So we look at a couple of different pieces when we look at comprehensive services and comprehensive wraparound services. So one, our goal is always connection out into the community, because if you decide that Palmer Court is not where you want to live any longer, maybe you don't need that level of service any longer, you still should be connected back to those resources in the community.
And that cognitively, I was going the opposite direction. And you determine that First Step House decides that you're no longer the right client for them, you still have to live somewhere. And I hate to see a point where, okay, well, if you're not receiving services here, you don't need to live here. And that being,
Yeah,
that can often tyrannize individuals and just, maybe we
gotcha.
still just have to have that minimum level of
Yeah.
stability of having a room that we can go back to.
Yeah.
And that can be difficult when you're a treatment team right across the hall and they kick you out.
Yeah, absolutely. So I want to be really clear, it's not treatment services that are engaged in that, like where you're thinking like an inpatient treatment, it's housing, right? They still are residents, they have a lease, they have all of those different pieces. It's just that the supportive services are a little bit closer to be able to come, especially if you're experiencing a crisis and working through that. But if you're getting treatment somewhere like at Valley or at First Step House or at Sacred Circle, you're still going to go there for that treatment.
So my comment is from my own personal experience as crisis interventionist and from the EMS perspective. So I think one of the problems we had with the Homeless Resource Center here in this neighborhood, and why folks like I would end up working on the streets so often doing interventions. One, Ballpark's really big,
Right.
but also special populations. So one of the things that we go back and forth with the state and why a scatter sites model didn't work is because we weren't able, for all this myriad of reasons, to do the wraparound services close enough to the population in need, right? So to sort of hit on kind of what Kevin is saying, from the perspective of just down and dirty in the streets, which is kind of where I operated for a long period of time, it's difficult to explain how important it is for folks in severe stress moments to have to walk 2 blocks or 10 blocks or whatever, or get on a bus or do all these kind of things, right? So, I think that's what we have to imagine. And, I really would like this community to be more clear about what it feels like when you're in those moments and the services are not close enough for you to access immediately. And then how that steps into the EMS services in something like that we call frequent flyers.
Right.
That person is so unstable in their housing situation, or, on the streets, obviously, or in a resource center where the wraparound services aren't close enough, then they become EMS overusers, right? So I just think that we all need to start thinking about these complex situations from the eyes of the folks who are actually experiencing what it feels like to be homeless or in a very low income issue, or also coming out of homelessness, things like this. So just basically under the nutshell of instability. So again, I love this, right? And I hope everybody else will start utilizing that same lens to think about these problems.
Amy, help me out here with who we had here a few months ago from the
That was
legislature.
Jim
no,
Mahoney.
Jim
Jim
McEwen.
McEwen.
He's
Right, and
former mayor of West Bountiful, member of the Utah Homeless Services Board.
so, I mean, and he, did talk about this project. And I was just wondering, how is there going to be some funding source that's coming from them as well, that group?
We have an application in for some pre-development funds that would enable us to really start community engagement, hire an architect, do those different pieces to kick off the project. So we have an application into the Utah Homeless Services Board right now to kick us off and give us our first pre-development funds to really be able to engage and move the project forward.
I just wonder if there'll be some sort of strings attached to that and how it might be re-envisioned.
Right. We don't have the funding, and we're not sure what the contract will look like. So we'll cross that bridge when we get that approval and we get there.
I was just interested with what he was kind of saying at that time, and just going, okay.
I think there are some discrepancies between what Jim told us and what we're hearing today. And there are certainly discrepancies between what he said and what I heard you present at the Utah Homeless Services Board with regard to numbers of units And so I really appreciate your clarity.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, and thank you for inviting us to come, because I know your agendas are always really full, so it's always nice to get a spot.
well, you'll be close to affordable food. How fun is that?
It's gonna be amazing.
Mhm.
Also, this is a random side note, but I was like, you are everywhere. I was driving to work the other day and you were like in front of the Smith's Ballpark Stadium, like walking your dog. I was like, oh my gosh.
I do walk my dog.
You are Wonder Woman. Everywhere. I was like, holy smokes.
I am a real life resident of the ballpark and I live, a block from it. So
Yeah.
it happens.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And we're so fortunate to have her.
Oh, Lord. When we were, originally sold as a community on homeless resource centers and the scattered site model, we were told that wraparound services was an integral part of those homeless resource centers. And it's disappointing that it isn't. And I know that there's pressure for space and all of those sorts of things. So how can we feel assured that that'll happen this time? Because I hear what Christina's saying about, and I think if I'm just like feeling sick with a cold and I'm like a moderately functional person, how little I want to leave my home for any kind of reason. I'm really hearing, that wraparound services on site are essential, but that didn't happen. And it's so why will it happen this time?
Yeah, that's a great question. And that's actually another big push and a reason that we have to really look at this property and what we can do with it. One of the primary drivers right now of being able to pay for those supportive services is through Medicaid. And that is a relatively new phenomenon that has come about through permanent supportive housing models. Pamela's Place utilizes it. First Step House utilizes it at Medina Place in Central City. It's something that's utilized at Denver Street with their services there as well. And that is actually how they fund all of that work, because I know.
Sorry.
I know, I was heard about the funding.
Federal stress, everybody, federal stress.
But we recognize that has to be a built-in part of how services are provided to be able to fund it and to be able to keep them going and keep them on site and working in that way and in that manner. And that will be a key part of what we do as we move forward, is to ensure that we do have the revenue through these different funding streams to be able to support that.
And it seems like the hospital is supposed to have some sort of walk-in component in it.
Don't direct that question at me.
I'm
not
like,
the person.
I know it's more like I think I heard that.
I would imagine they would have something, but I'm not sure. I've not been close to those conversations.
It's trying to
put Brandy's sitting there smiling. Do you have any? Yeah.
Let's direct the spotlight. I don't know.
What type of walk-in are you talking about?
Behavioral health.
So,
well, like
the access center,
emergency help in the kind of mental health aspect of it, that there's supposed to be a place that someone could go to.
Yeah, so we currently have, and it's in the Avenue, so it's not close to here, but it's a lot closer than anything else you have. In the Avenues, 7 days a week from 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. Anybody can walk in to receive behavioral health services. We call it an access center. I call it a behavioral health emergency room. And then the emergency department, of course, is a requirement under Utah hospital licensing things. And then within that, and I don't know to the extent on behavioral health services what will come with us, just because all of that's still in planning and design phase. But that may be a good question for next Tuesday.
Yeah.
Miss Amy. And but currently so within LDS hospital, there are currently 4. So the access center, and inpatient behavioral health, medical detox, which has its own rules and funny things around payer. And then the psychiatric ICU, psychiatric ICU. PICU often gets mixed up with pediatric ICU. So anyway, so there are currently those 4 services available at LDS hospital, but like I said, that may be a good question to bring on Tuesday
Yeah, because my question was more what they were going to do in the new hospitals. I just seem to think that, I thought I heard that there was that kind of discussion.
Yeah, and I mean, we recognize there's not enough behavioral health. And that is part of the reason why we are currently in the process of expanding behavioral health services in the valley, both for pediatric at Wasatch Canyons with that construction project that will open, I believe it's later this year, early next year. So that will expand and improve access for our pediatric population, so anyone under 18 years old, as well as adult behavioral health services at Altaview Hospital. So that will help service the south end of the valley and expand and add, I'm probably gonna lie to make friends here, but I'm gonna say roughly 30 beds, which in the 3.5 years that I've worked at LDS Hospital, I can count on two hands the amount of days that I have had, like nobody in the queue needing some type of behavioral health services. And it's so needed, it has its own transfer center. So all the behavioral health hospitals talk to each other, so it's outside of the ER type transfer center from hospital to hospital. So
Yes, ma'am.
So I was lucky to be at the last IHC meeting when we were talking about the massing study for the design of the new hospital. And this is a question that I asked, I brought up to the director of IHC Hospital. And it's because this is such an incredible, they have such an incredible behavioral unit that, you know, it would just be the greatest thing to be able to move it all down there. But what Heather said at the meeting was they were going to try and fit as many beds into their rehabbing unit in the State Street project. But again, that has to do with the massing and the design of the space that is not yet built, and then expand its South Valley, as she said. But that might be something good to advocate for this group, that you know, when this development agreement goes through for the hospital, that you really are, you know, talking about how much that behavioral health unit would support your neighborhood and how important it would be to the development agreement that is still online. So
I'm just say my feedback came from that you're still in the design phase. They're still in the design phase. These are conversations that have now to build relationships on.
Absolutely.
Because you're still building these things. If you miss it and you're trying to do everything in-house, I mean, the reality is most people can walk 2 blocks. They're grown adults, they've lived this long. I can walk 2 blocks. I don't want to if I don't have to, but I can. There are ways around that. You can have shuttles, etc. But if you plan to do everything in-house and then you finally lack the capacity because there aren't that many therapists in this area. There aren't that many doctors.
We definitely acutely feel the employee shortage in that arena for sure.
Yeah, duplicating efforts unnecessarily when you're so, like, if you're working anywhere else, then I would probably like, yes, well, makes sense. You're literally going to be
right there
2 blocks from what's supposed to be a world-class hospital, right? And from one of the largest mental health players in the Wasatch Valley. I'm saying, like, building those relationships into your design could significantly impact your design.
Absolutely.
And elevate and enhance. And then there's synergy from this agency working with this agency, working with this agency.
Absolutely.
Not a bunch of silos that nobody gets in a balanced place.
Yep.
Right?
No, I think that's a great point, and that is one of the key pieces why we are so eager to get some pre-development funds, is so that we have the capacity to be able to engage and do that. And I don't know, I'll chat with you offline about the Tuesday meetings. I'd be interested just to hear more about that and get that on our radar. So, yeah, thank you.
The Plank also has a model that I'd love for y'all to. They're familiar with the Plank.
Yes.
Plank.
Yeah.
They have a model that's different.
Yes.
But offers similar services, and I thought it was ridiculous and pie in the sky, but they're doing it.
Yeah.
And they've been doing it for years now, and so that might be something to, you know, to
absolutely.
inform your
One
design.
of the things that we're really very aware of is how are we engaging with our stakeholders here locally that have projects that are operating in manners that are meeting the needs of their residents, but also the needs of the community, and how are we bringing all of that expertise and knowledge into this vision as we move forward. And that's something that's really important to us.
We have a question online and I was, let's see it. Yes, I said I'm trying to unmute you to give her the opportunity to ask this question
Oh.
online.
I expand a little bit on what we're doing now and instead of, okay, so Carrie, that is a great question. So with that, we've done a couple of things over the last 2 years as we've worked really closely with Detective Fallows, and I don't know if he is still on or not. But we've done a variety of different pieces to be able to look at what we can do now in the interim as we go forward with that. So we have invested just about $700,000 into the current property, trying to make every possible change that we could to the facility that we have right now within that. So we worked with Detective Fellows and his team. We completed a SEPTED. We went through and made all of the changes and recommendations that came from that. Everything from adding lighting to cutting down bushes. We have moved and shifted to a really secured entrance facility, as well as adding cameras and a variety of different components as we look through each of those different pieces. And in our work with Detective Fellows, we've seen a significant drop in the number of calls to the area over the last 2 years. But we know that that doesn't mean that our work is done. We know we're always going to encounter situations that require our partnership with law enforcement and with our other crisis services partners. And so we're continuing to do that work. And I think that more than anything has really made us more passionate about moving forward with this project, just as we've come into that facility and made all of these changes and still recognize that we're not hitting the mark that we want to hit, and how can we support that moving forward. But we will continue to work incredibly closely with law enforcement and all of those different pieces. We've also added, as I mentioned earlier, the 2 24/7 security guards, which has been a really great addition to the facility, and honestly helping one of our greatest areas of challenge is, individuals who are trying to get into the facility that are not residents. And so they've really been able to help with that shifting and not us being able to ensure that everyone who is on the property or in the facility is a resident, and helping us with those different pieces. So, and if Detective Fallows is on, I don't know if there's anything he would want to add on our current things that we are doing.
Scroll around.
Yeah, I'm still here.
Detective, let's go home. I mean, I love having you, but we need you to not burn out.
I know.
Fallows.
Nope, I'm a machine. We're all good. I'm not a machine. That's not true. Yeah, no, just everything that Sarah said is 100% accurate. We've been meeting for years now at this point, but yeah, the things that we're doing now, which is a good question, and have been doing for some time, is literally everything she just said, which we'll continue to do. We're continuing to partner. We've been working extremely close together on all the different inputs that the police department can put in on like the SEPTED and the safety security, both of the current building and the new designs that they're coming up with. So they've done a really great job of keeping the police department in the process from pretty much day one, actually, really, of this concept. So yeah, we're just going to continue to do that. We continue to meet and discuss the issues we're having, or how we can be partners with each other to resolve the issues that we're having. And again, a lot of that came about with the safety measures that we started 2 years ago. And to give some really preliminary numbers that off the top of my head, I believe when we started, one of our highest months was around 200 calls for service. And now with Palmer Court, we're averaging maybe 70 or less calls for service. So a ginormous decrease for the police department. And that's, again, really due to the partnership of Palmer Court and their staff, the police department, just working together. So we've already had a ton of positive change over there. And it will just continue with, as we go forward, regardless of what happens with the buildings or not. We're just going to continue to keep that partnership and just keep helping each other out, because it's been working very well, for sure. I don't know, I guess that's all I really have to add, but
That sounds like a huge decrease, really impressive. But one of the things that we know is that crime has dropped with a few metropolitan areas that are notable exception, but crime has dropped everywhere precipitously since the height of the pandemic, right? Like Salt Lake City District 5, if you look at, you know, the online dashboard, 2020 to 2024 is a 35% decrease in crime. And it's great. It is very positive. But I don't necessarily think that police were doing a terrible job, and you know, they just had a tremendous load to deal with in 2020 and 2021. And I wonder to what extent we can point to $700,000 is an awful lot of money to invest. But I also wonder about these greater societal forces that we can't point to and how those are contributing to safety in neighborhoods and our city overall.
Absolutely. I think that's a great point. And what we know is that we're going to continue to have strong partnerships with law enforcement, with our neighbors, with our staff, and with our security team, to ensure that we are doing everything that we can to make sure that we see a decrease and continue to work that path and do those different pieces. But yeah, there always are many, many factors that can impact different pieces.
Yes, ma'am.
Just want to say, and kind of echoing what Christina talked about being with people at sometimes some of the worst moments of their life and creating the conditions for them to get to some of the best. So just thank you for that work that you do. And just want to personally say, I'm really excited by the mixed income option that you're bringing to this redevelopment, because I feel like anytime you just concentrate one group of people, it's not good. You know, whether high income individuals see some problems with that, or low income individuals, or everywhere in between. So I just love that that commitment to diversity and to creating a diversity with mixed income as part of it.
And I think to the Utah homeless, I just couldn't read. To the Utah Homeless Services Board, I thought you specified that it was also going to be focused on families.
It is. So the mixed income use is going to be two plus bedrooms is our goal, so that we're able to serve that primarily families on that side. I'm working through that, so yeah.
And that'll be the side that faces Main Street as opposed to the side that faces State Street. Is that still sort of?
Yes, I mean, I get, again, our very preliminary visionary pieces, yes.
I'm gonna throw, since you're talking multifamily, or not multifamily, but families for housing, I'm just gonna, my thing is parking.
Yeah.
And whenever you do these affordable parking projects, they always reduce the parking. But the thing is, especially when you families, they need to have their cars.
Yeah, absolutely. And that is something that we already have discussed, just even preliminarily in our conversations that we've had.
And I don't imagine there's much off-street parking there in that area.
No, I mean, there's some street parking and whatnot, but what we know is we want access to parking. We also want it to be secured access to parking, so.
With the mix of your populations, you'll need far less cars because you'll have people that tend to be somewhat mobile with mixed families of many vehicles, and so that actually will reduce your footprint there as far as parking goes.
Well, yes and no, right? Because the site is still doubling in units.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is like, so if there's overall 500 people and 200 of them are the people that are currently at Palmer Court, we don't see their vehicles there. There aren't as many vehicles there, and so you'll find that the other 300, I'm sure. Anyways, the other 300 may need 300 cars, but they also, if they go to 400, if you have 500 spots, for example, they'll probably be more highly utilized by the more working class population that you have. That might be very low SES, very struggling, low functioning individuals. And I say low functioning, unstable at their disability to try to address their challenges. Many of them don't have licenses. Many of them are working through the criminal justice system. Many of them have other impediments to having vehicles, and so if that can just reduce your burden.
And I guess in these type of situations, I think that saying that it's okay, close to tracks and that kind of
Yeah.
thing.
I don't see it.
To reduce the parking isn't a very good argument, and
yeah.
especially, oh, it's affordable housing, so we have to cut the parking to,
Yeah.
it doesn't work very well for a successful project.
Absolutely. It's a great point.
Any other questions? Kelly, like, yeah, said a dang thing this whole meeting, and you bothered to come in person.
Dennis is terrifying to me.
I'm so grateful he's sitting all the way back there. He's terrifying to us all.
I just want to know who's not Dennis. Who's not Dennis? I just want to know who's the not Dennis.
My only real question is kind of envisioning, well, it's a two-parter. First, I'm hearing, how do we make sure that homeless services providers are doing what they've committed to do?
Yeah.
And I would love to flip that question and say, how do we better support you to help enable you to do what you need to do?
Right.
Because y'all got piled on a lot. And that's not fair, it's not legit. And yeah, maybe Miller is not the paradise that we all would love it to be, but how could it be without better and more secure, more community support and more services available for more people? That's just bottom line. We don't have enough services for the people on the street. But my second thing specifically with Palmer is what happens to the current residents as we're transitioning?
That's a great question. So what we envision, again, as we're gearing up for some pre-development dollars to have the real experts here and addressing those different pieces, is that we would actually be able to do the initial new build on the side of the property that does not have a building right now. And so when that facility is complete, the residents would move over. There would be no displacement of any of the current residents at Palmer Court in that process.
And there'd be plenty of support, behavioral health support for the people who simply cannot move.
Absolutely. This would be a process. We've been holding focus groups and talking with the residents primarily just around what do we need for safety and security in the building now? What would that look like? Those different pieces. But once we get these pre-development funds and we're able to move forward in a far bigger capacity, you start those conversations right away, because that change has to be slow and they have to know it's coming, and it can take a lot of time for someone to feel comfortable with that. And they may never feel fully comfortable with it, but at least we have a plan on how to support them over the next couple of years as we get towards that facility being done and transferring into a new apartment.
What's your ideal timeline?
That is a great question.
It's about, but
No, we are hoping that the Utah Homeless Services Board will approve our pre-development application at their board meeting in March. And then with that, looking at the application process for low-income housing tax credits. And hopefully if those two components can go our way, we'd really be able to hit the ground running relatively soon.
Are LIHTC funds through HUD or through somebody else?
The state.
The state.
The state.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, it's.
So the population that's going to be, the population in Palmer Court right now is a mix of folks, right? It's families and single individuals.
Yes, that's a great question too. So the families that are in there, we are going to work with our local housing authorities and work with the families that we currently have in the Palmer Court project to actually have them placed in the community with the supportive services that they still need, so that when we transitioned over, it would just be singles in the new build. One of the things that we've heard loud and clear from our families is that mixing families and singles together, their needs are too different, their needs are too diverse. It is not something that is conducive for either population. And so that will not be something that happens as we move forward.
does that dynamic change at all when you're starting to look at an aging population? The kind of the grandparent preschool model sort of thing?
Yeah.
So if you've got, clearly we don't want we don't ever want to provide danger to either side.
Mm-hmm.
But
there's that level of the aging population that does do better when they're in more of a family-centered population and it benefits both.
Absolutely.
So that really hard and fast, never the trade shall meet is a little challenging.
I mean, I think that one of the pieces we want to look at is if we have an individual that works best in that situation, we are just one in a continuum of housing and permanent supportive housing options for those individuals. And so it's not just about what can we provide, but how are we leveraging our partnerships in the community to get them to the spot that is going to be the best spot for them. And that may not be Palmer Court. Maybe it is somewhere else, and we're very open and already do work with our partners closely on that, and we'll continue to.
I'm hearing what you're saying. If I remember years ago, Matt Millville telling me like, if there's another separate population that we need a resource center for, it's aging homeless individuals. And I never forget it. I've heard him say it multiple times over the years.
It's heartrending to see.
Yeah, it
To
is.
see them age and to watch them, to interact with the same individuals for years and years and years. And they just want to go on. So saying that, you know, hey, we're gonna segregate you from families forever, you know, feels a little punitive.
That's a great.
Sorry, I'm not keeping a good eye on the chat. So I'm hearing a lot of positive things. It sounds like you don't anticipate the facilities taken together as having any more impact on the surrounding neighborhood than they have at the moment. You anticipate the impact to go down
Yes.
because of design considerations.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And we've seen that impact happen with some of the newer build permanent supportive housing. First Step House has done a lot around building new unit or new build permanent supportive housing and have incorporated many of these design techniques. And we've already seen the impact in the surrounding areas around those projects as well. So
that's so interesting when you think about how there's such a movement to buy up motels. And it seems like in the end, maybe we were shooting ourselves in the foot.
Yeah, you definitely, unfortunately, it's one of those pieces that as you go and you see how it comes together and the building and the where in the building and all of those different pieces. And I also think we've just evolved so much in general, our partnership with law enforcement, all of those different pieces that we've have so many new considerations at the table, and we're very mindful of that.
I think you had a point.
I just wanted to make a comment that, you know, Palmer Court is in the neighborhood and we want to be a really good neighbor to everybody that's around us. And we've gone out and visited with the neighbors and, you know, so I just want everybody to know that everything that we do, our sole focus and one of our goals is to be a good neighbor, understanding the issues that we deal with every single day. That is one of the things that our staff work really hard to minimize the impact on the neighborhood. So just want you to know that everyone works very hard. And if you have any concerns or anything, please reach out to us. I'm gonna leave some cards with you.
Okay.
And, you know, if there's an issue, just reach out to us. Yeah.
Considering your population, you do fairly well, I mean, ridiculously well, more than would be expected, so.
Thank you. Well, I think our fingers are crossed that the Utah Homeless Services Board, that we get, that we have enough votes to get that funding approved. We'd love to move forward with this project, and those pre-development funds are key to us being able to do this. And the sooner we get the pre-development funds, the sooner we'll be able to engage and really embark in being able to continue on this collaborative process and in a way that will greatly benefit the Ballpark area.
Sounds positive. We will see. Those meetings can go in ways I would never predict. But they're public, anybody can sign on and listen or go to the Capitol in person and listen. So if you want another meeting, Kevin always wants more meetings. Sorry, Kevin. Okay, I think we're ready to wrap up unless there are any questions. No more questions online.
Can I say something before you close the meeting?
Oh,
Are you getting ready to
sure.
Close the meeting?
Yeah.
Speaking of Kevin.
Geez, Kevin's gotten a lot of lot of coverage.
Well, remarkably, this is a big plug for street level grassroots effort. He was able to that fast contact his contacts and ask for some of those posters. So
Oh,
That's great.
awesome.
just that fast.
Yeah, that's great.
Just like that.
So
Thanks, Kevin. I know you have.
Power of community.
yeah, so cool.
All righty, ready to wrap up? Oh, John, thanks for sticking with us online the whole time. All righty. Thank you,
Thanks,
everybody.
everyone.
Sign off.
Okay, it's funny that I have to read about the room so much in order to experience all my senses.